It's a mean age. But it is gonna be a beautiful future as long as we don't f*** it up. I'm Brian McWilliams, and this is Mean Age Daydream, where I bring you unfiltered comedy, criticism, philosophy, and politics with a mean age daydream. Hey everybody, welcome. I hope you all had a wonderful Valentine's Day, as this will be airing the day after. I hope you found love. And if you didn't find love, I hope you curled up with a good book, be it pornographic or not. But I'm doing a show today because I want to do something a little bit out of the usual for this program, something a little bit uplifting. And I can think of no better guest for an episode I've really been thinking about for a while now, because I think there's a problem with isolation, with resentment, with ignorance when it comes to relationships, especially in this space. I see a lot of depressing tweets out there and thoughts out there, and hopefully this episode is going to help to get some people to be, I guess, less than the bitter husks we libertarians are so often known as. But if not, we'll still have a good time. So I'd like to welcome in Josie Glabach, the Red Headed Libertarian. Josie is a mother of three, Timcast News contributor who had fled from Massachusetts to Florida in 2022. She is, of course, as I said, the Red Headed Libertarian on Twitter, and shit posts and educates with the best of them with equal aplomb. Much Twitter spaces being hosted here about revolutionary history and other good things. So, Josie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. God, I just realized my speakers were all messed up. Well, that should sound better now.
Okay.
My mic, hold on. I love it. I love when things just don't quite go right. All right, there we go. So now it should sound quite a bit better, hopefully. I apologize for that. I wanted to start off with, before we get into this topic of, as I've termed it, love, lust, and liberty, I wanted to run by the State of the Union, see what your thoughts on that were. I know you were watching it. I also tried to watch. I had to defend my own State of the Union. My wife was at work, so I had to maintain a union of watching the kids here. But, what were your thoughts when you were watching it? Did you enjoy it? Did you think that Biden held it together?
He was definitely on something. I don't know what, but he was juiced out of his mind. But it was a lot of gaslighting, and I kind of expected that to happen. So I wasn't surprised. It was going exactly the way I thought it was going to go. There was the stuttering and the stammering and people applauding, even though they couldn't exactly tell what he said. And just a lot of gaslighting. I appreciated McCarthy's deadpan for a lot of it. That was kind of the highlight of it.
No speeches being ripped up in the background, as State of the Union Pelosi style.
Yep.
Well, I did think it was interesting. I just watched a highlight reel. I didn't get to watch the entire hour. But one of the things that always drove me insane is the incessant clapping that always happens from the party in power. And I got to say, I enjoyed a little bit more of the parliamentary aspect. You think about the British Parliament, these people are always screaming at each other, and it makes for much more entertaining political theater for sure. There was a lot more of that. I remember that Barack Obama moment where somebody yelled out liar, but it was a lot more jeers in there. What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, they act as if nobody's ever jeered at a State of the Union before. And that, right. How many did Trump have? Like he was jeered at constantly. They were interrupting. They were booing. Like there was constant, and it's like, but it all that gets washed out, and it's like pearl clutching. Like somebody jeered. Somebody was awful to President Biden. It was so disrespectful. Like Adam Kinzinger, I think, talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene, like booing him or saying something. And he was just beside himself that could have possibly happened. And he's like, but she won't be punished. And it's like, what, if it violated decorum, then kick her out. But if it didn't, then, that's free speech and she can do whatever she wants.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, you've got the people on the left that are, maybe they're not explicitly screaming. As you said, they did it to Trump, but they've spent the last few years of Trump's reign trying to call him a Russian asset, encouraging their supporters to call him Nazis and all this stuff. It's like, let's not pretend here, as you said, let's not clutch pearls too tightly. But I mean, there were some things that stood out to me in that State of the Union. obviously the talk of the oil companies taking massive profits really got under my skin because Biden even addressed the issue where they said, "Look, we don't want to reinvest in making more capacity here because we don't think we're going to be around. You're continuously attacking us." And then he says, "Well, I think that's nonsense because I told them oil's going to be around for the next 10 years," which got a pretty big laugh from the crowd, and appropriately so. And it was interesting to see him address I guess, a criticism and to hear the outright laughter from the crowd. So, I mean, what are there any other moments you can kind of think of like that where it was just so outlandish what he was saying compared to the response?
I appreciated that he actually said oil is going to be around for at least 10 more years because you can't just stop everything and make everything electric. You can't do that. That's not pragmatic. That's not possible. And I appreciate that. I'm like, this is like the one time he told the truth in this whole thing, and people like lost their minds. It's like, well, you literally, you can't, like, we don't even have, like, think about construction vehicles, for instance, like just all of a sudden they're electric,
Yeah.
like there's got to be a process to these things. You can't just stop drilling oil and then let it work itself out. That's not the way that it works. And I appreciated that one part that actually stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I guess to me, what cracked me up was that he says at least 10 years, and I'm thinking from the oil perspective, from these producers, you're like, okay, well, 10 more years. How much? I mean, getting your capacity ramped up, developing a new oil well, drilling, all that stuff. That takes, especially
Years.
with regulations, years and years and
Years
years. Yeah,
and
it's
years,
like you're not giving us much of a guarantee, Joe. To your point,
Exactly.
it does rub in though that there's no way. I mean, our energy grids, you can't operate them. There's not enough. Fossil fuels have to be the battery backbone. The
Yeah.
quote unquote battery. There's just no way. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty interesting. I also I also enjoyed his calling out somehow trying to associate Paul Pelosi as a victim of the
Of
January
January
6th
6th.
attacks.
I laughed. I was like, what? Like, I rewinded it and was like, we got to watch that again. Like the gymnastics he made to get to that point, like the
Yeah.
way that he did it, I had to listen to it like 2 or 3 times before I'm like, yeah, he did that. He did that. And he said that the guy was in there shouting, "Stop the steal" rhetoric or something like that. And
Mhm.
that didn't happen. There's no evidence of that at all. But he made him into a J6 victim. That way they had a political violence against somebody. It's just epic gaslighting. Epic.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep, it is. I mean, it's amazing how January 6th, 9/11, of course, a tragic event, don't get me wrong, but is used by the state as this never forget justification for keeping all of these various programs in place that spy on us and crush our civil liberties. Never forget. January 6th is very clearly that for the Democrats in their exercises to go after extremists, to blame Republicans for anything and anything out there. So, yeah, you can see why they're clinging to it with both hands.
mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's their civil war. It's their big deal. It's their moment, and they gotta clutch to it and bring it up at every single chance they get.
Yeah.
You know.
What did you think about Joe Biden's unhinged? And it's funny, I was looking at the highlights on PBS NewsHour, had a clip, and I noticed that they did not have, at least that I could see, the comments that Joe Biden made about Xi Jinping and how no president would trade places with a Chinese premier. I mean, that was one of the most bizarre parts
That
of the
was that
speech.
that didn't make any sense at all. Because I'm thinking like, there are people that would trade places with him. Like
Yeah,
what? Like, of course,
I
there's
would.
other dictators. Yeah, it's like I go rule and make it better over there. Like what? And everybody was just dead silent. Because nobody really understood it, but nobody could really say, okay, he's off. He's out of his mind right now. They just kind of just sat there like, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You
somebody's
know.
got a blow dart behind a screen, and they got to shoot him full of another gram of meth. Just
Yeah, some
oh,
I don't
thank
know
God.
what was. Yeah, he wasn't really blinking the whole time. He was just like going, 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 going. Like he was in the
Right.
zone.
Well, I love too that he says that weird line, and then he like was doubling down and screaming about it. It kind of reminded me of Norm Macdonald.
Mm.
One of my favorite comedians of all time. He would tell a joke on Saturday Night Live, and then it would bomb, and he would turn to another camera and tell it again. It was like Joe Biden used the exact same approach with that line about China.
Norm Macdonald, rest his soul. He was one of my followers.
Oh,
He
really?
was a fan. Yeah.
I'm
Oh, I loved
jealous.
him. I absolutely, absolutely loved him. Yeah,
He's
I'll
the
miss him
best. I
forever.
still let me ask you this because
Mhm.
I don't think it was a long joke, but you never know with Norm. half the time he would make jokes on Twitter. Half the time he would just legitimately give you play-by-play
of
of
like
golf
a
tournaments.
golf tournament. Exactly. It's just what he liked to do. And I don't know if it was like a long game joke for him or if it's just something he enjoyed and was like, all right, let's live tweet this golf game.
Yeah,
Because that is on brand for him being hilarious.
right, exactly. You're like, you literally just don't know. It's kind of like, Michael Malice control sometimes. And you're like, oh, okay, I think he's trolling, but maybe he's not trolling. Yeah, it just throws you off. And
Yeah.
was, sadly, he died without ever giving us the truth of the matter. Last couple things just on the State of the Union, then we'll move on to the main course here. Keith Olbermann had tweeted out, as a cynic, that this, and he says, as a professional cynic, that this was the best State of the Union speech he has ever heard a president give. Do you agree?
No. Absolutely not. Honestly, he's not a very good speech giver. Like if you want to talk about someone who can give a good speech or can talk well, you have Obama or you have W, and those are two guys that knew how to talk. Definitely not the best speech I've ever heard, like especially with, the epic amount of gaslighting, but no, of course not. That's ridiculous, but these people like see Joe Biden as like a god and they have to worship him. And, like there's that one of the main trolls used to be a Trump troll, Defiant, I think is his name. Yeah, he's one of the like major trolls. He's been to the White House and stuff, but he tweeted out like this, he calls him Dark Brandon, and like it's supposed to be a flattering nickname, and it's like, no.
Yeah,
that's
Dark
not at all.
Brandon Rising.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen a lot of people, and this was the reaction today, saying that, well, number one, I guess he said folks about 800 times during the speech. This is how Joe Biden connects with the common man that he's screwing over with inflation and everything else. Yeah, folks, say folks. And of course, calling people dog-faced pony soldiers. But I people were talking about this, and there's legitimately, I saw on Twitter, talk about how likable he is. Oh my God, he's so likable. This man, he has charisma. And I mean, you've got to live in a different dimension to think that he's got charisma in any way. He comes across as this doddering psychopath, almost like, old man yells at cloud. Or Grandpa Simpson. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. There's nothing endearing about him, especially given, anything that you know about him. If you watch him talk, if you watch how he's a good, he's good at politicking. He's a career politician, so he's a good talker, but people look for like a father figure. I'd actually predicted that he was going to be in office January 9th, 2019. It's my pinned tweet. I predicted it was going to be him and Kamala Harris. And it was based on nostalgia of the Obama era, but they needed to mix it up too with a non-white woman. So, I was like, this is going to happen. I got to read the room here. But yeah, they got him in there because they wanted people to remember the good old days of Barack Obama, which were not the good old days, but people kind of they look at the past in an endearing way.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Do you think that Obama's pulling the strings? That's been the rumor that he's the secret power behind Biden. Do you think there's truth to that?
I think he's probably an advisor on whoever is because it's not Biden. Biden's too dumb and old and senile to be doing any of this. There is advisors. I just don't know who they are that are guiding this for sure. Absolutely. They talked about it in the cabal of elites. They talked about that in the Time magazine article, so there is other people like running America right now. I just don't know who they are.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny, too, just to wrap it up on Biden. As you said, when you get to know anything about him, he clearly is unlikable, corrupt. And above all else, you talk about the gaslighting. You talk about him taking credit for the nonsense and telling us things we know aren't true. The amount of lies he's been caught in over the years. I mean, right now, the Republicans are talking about possibly, taking action against George Santos, who, clearly is a liar. He clearly has made up a lot of his achievements. One of the funnier tweets about coming out of the NFC Championship game between the Eagles and the 49ers, that George Santos was listed as the 49ers' third-string quarterback. But then you look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden has lied just as much as Santos. He's lied about his career. He's lied about law school. He's lied about his upbringing. He's lied about his military stuff. Legitimately everything he said is a lie. And yet we don't see the same outrage. We don't see the same calls. Not to defend Santos, by the way, but it's a little bit hypocritical.
Politicians lie. They lie. They'll lie about it. Like, look at Blumenthal. He lied about his military service. Like politicians lie. And it's you got to be. Most of them are raging narcissists, and you got to be a level of narcissistic to think that you can change the world. Like, there's in this way, get into an office and change the world that way. There's got to be a level of narcissism there, and narcissists will lie and lie and lie, and politicians lie. It's like, so is this a precedent you want to set about a liar? Because there's a lot of them. I think you're gonna have to gut everybody if you're gonna punish them for this.
Yeah. Well, here's a little bit of a transition into our next topic then. Do you think, from your experience in the libertarian movement, right? Because I want to talk about this, as I do think it's interesting to get into experiences, especially experiences from women. But do you think that we could use more narcissists, and that we need that to help lead our party into a next evolution? Do you think that we need more passion, or do you think that there are plenty existing in the movement right now, but we just don't know how to play the game?
We do not know what we're doing. You don't need a narcissist to be a politician. It's better to not have one. But we have no idea what we're doing. But I think that if we start at a state or a local level, then we're going to start seeing a change gradual, because like the communists that infiltrated America, you got to start from the bottom and work your way up. You can't just jump right into the, president. Like, you gotta start down and work and work and work and get into, the school committees and the town councils and the sheriff's offices, and get into those places. And then from there, you work up to a state level and you get into the state politics. And then from there, you can work up and get into federal and federal politics there. That's just my idea.
I agree completely. We talk about the Fabians and these group that basically has helped the left to infiltrate everything, and they use that method. It's bottom up, and I think that libertarians, to your point, should do the same thing. Absolutely. I think we're wasting so much time and money on these big campaigns. We have no chance of winning when, as you said, you can run for sheriff. You can find open positions in your local races that nobody's running for, and just take them. And now you have experience politically, and now you've clout, and use that to get forward. So
exactly.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into, as I've termed, love, lust, and liberty. So starting off, I just want to know, so coming in as a woman into the movement, right? It's long been a criticism of libertarianism that we don't have many women for good cause. Now, I think that's changing. And I'm curious to see if you agree that we're getting a much larger influx now than previously, from what I can see. But do you think there is a barrier coming in to libertarianism? Do you feel that when you were coming in? Also, I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how you came to the movement and your genesis of coming around to libertarian thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my genesis, I can start there. I never really fit in anywhere ideologically, and I found Ron Paul in 2012, and I'm like, okay, these are my people, cool. And I went the next 6 years just still not being able to talk to anybody, not feeling relatable, not being able to feel like I had a voice. And so I had a friend recommend that I jump on Twitter and try to find I'll have people to talk to on there. I'm like, okay, cool. So I got on Twitter. I followed Rand Paul, Ron Paul, Justin Amash, Thomas Massey.
The Lions of Liberty,
yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, obviously. I got on. I followed, all the big players, and then I'd comment on their things, and my following started to grow and grow and grow. And at this point, I didn't have a picture of myself. I didn't have a picture of myself for almost a year, because I just was there for my thoughts. I didn't think it ever. I was there more as like a listener, I guess. I didn't see this coming at all. I did not see what I've built coming at all. Like, I could not have imagined it. I just wanted like a group of like maybe 100 friends to talk to. But people kept noticing and kept following and following. I mean, I had 5,000 followers within 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and nobody'd see my face. Like, so they're all there for my ideas. I'm like, okay, this is good. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. The first day I showed my face, about a year in, I had somebody like, because I hadn't put any protections up. I'm just a person on the internet. There's pictures of me everywhere and whatever. I actually had somebody like take my picture and reverse Google search it and find out that I had been a model and an actress at one point. And so then they thought either I'm an actor, paid actor, or I'm catfishing. like it could not have been that I was just interested in the liberty movement. So they like doxed me on that. So I was like, all right, well, I'm pulling that down. I'm just no more pictures again. But yeah, that's something that women in the liberty movement deal with is being a catfish, being a fed, being stuff like that. I've established myself by now. I still see it happen with women, and I do see women that are bad actors on there,
Yeah.
and I disassociate from them immediately. But there are great women voices on there. Like I have many friends in the liberty movement who are women, and they might not have large followings like I do, but they still have great ideas and they still serve a purpose. And I like the way that the movement's going. I like that it's gearing toward like femininity, which I think is important. I think that that's how we fight. The feminist movement is with femininity, and I think that the feminist movement is one of the most dangerous things that are happening right now. And I say feminist, I don't mean like, you know,
You mean like the eighth wave feminism that's going
exactly
on right now.
whatever the heck is happening now. That's the most dangerous thing that's happening right now. And I think that the way to fight that is with femininity, and I think that the libertarians are kind of gearing that way too, like women in the home, mothers, things like that. And kind of getting back to those kind of classic roots, because I call myself a Bill of Rights libertarian, so getting back to that Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and just going from there, moving forward that way.
Yeah. It's funny. So I remember we did an event. This is several years ago. We used to do events with Liberty on the Rocks, which is a great organization that's still around. But Sergio used to be out here in LA where I live. And we did these events. And I remember Dave Smith came out, and it was me, Dave Smith, and I think Jason Stapleton. But we got to this beautiful venue in Hollywood. We walked up, to the top level, and there were these two very attractive ladies sitting at the bar. And my first thought was, these girls are in the wrong place. They don't realize that there's a libertarian meeting coming here, but that gives you an indication of where the mindset was, I guess a few years ago, even with me, where it's just as surprising to see women, let alone attractive women, be interested in this libertarian space. It just was unusual. And to your point about coming in and posting the picture and people thinking that instantly you're a fed or a plant. I guess because I had a note about this exact topic. It's a little bit, I guess, a lot bit of a catch-22, in that if you are somebody that is a woman, especially an attractive woman in the space, you might have an advantage in that people are going to go, oh wow, this is very unusual to see this, wow. So you can attract a lot of followers, but you will have that instantaneous response of, she's here for the grift,
Absolutely.
And it's just, and so if you have additional thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. And then also I'd love to talk about, some of these newer people that have just come in the space. There's one gal, and I can't remember her exact Twitter handle, but, yoga pants Liberty girl. I'll just call her that. Right. So I'm curious to hear, what your thoughts are on that, and how we can combat it, how we can understand it, how people can kind of negotiate around it, so that we're not driving people away with our responses while still being somewhat responsible in who we're following.
This girl, I disassociated from her. I told her I was done with her.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting,
Yeah,
because I haven't engaged
I don't cut a lot of
barely
people
in
off.
any way.
I
Yeah.
don't cut a lot of people off, but when I cut them off, it's a big deal.
Interesting.
Yes, I
Okay.
cut her off. She started associating with people who have doxed me in the past. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, because there's different factions of the liberty movement, and she was first, she came out against the Mises Caucus, and then she challenged my friend Clint to a debate on that, and
I saw
he
that.
made a
Yeah.
fool of her, and then she kept like doubling down on this on Clint, and then was attacking him over like the Eliza stuff, and she's there for the grift. Like she's there to get
Yeah.
attention. She wants followers. She said that actually that she wants attention. She said that in the debate with him. And I think that there's just some, I don't know, bipolar. There's borderline personality. I don't know. There's some kind of mental thing there that I don't want any part of. But then she started associating with this fringe group of libertarians that I do not associate with. And so I'm like, all right, like if you're associating with them, then I'm cutting you off too. And that's what I did. I got rid of her, and I haven't thought of her, brought her up anything since then. So, I mean, that's that's her loss at this point.
Yeah. I think she'll probably, burn out, fade away pretty quickly. And I
If
guess
she
that's
gets
to the
in,
credit.
yeah, if she gets in with these people, she will, because they're all canceled already. They're all, I mean,
Yeah.
canceled in the best possible way, because you don't dox people. Like, how can
Oh,
you
yeah,
trust
exactly.
somebody? How can you trust somebody that puts something you don't want online onto Twitter and make it public and talk about it? Like, you can't trust somebody. So it's like, if people lose respect for you because of that, that's on you. That's
Hmm.
not on the person who called you out on it. That's on you. Like, nobody can trust you. Nobody, like, and then you lose your followers when you lose your trust with them. So she wants to associate with those people. All the more power to you, girl. Like, rock
Yeah.
on. Like, I will not be paying attention to that. Yeah. So
I mean, I think
that's
I guess that's to the credit of what's going on in the space is that,
mhm.
while you can get the followers quickly, that people will say, this is nonsense. I'm not just going to follow this person because
But
I'm
she doesn't have good
desperate. Because
ideas. It's not
no,
like
well, it
I've
seems
never seen a good idea.
that's what it seemed like. Right?
Yeah.
I gave her a cursory glance when this is all coming about. And, you mentioned Clint. I was texting with Clint about
Mhm.
Eliza a little bit, but then I noticed when I got into it with her, and I'm like, oh boy, Clint's in it with all the he's like at the nexus of all the Liberty scandals right now. But I do think that it's interesting that people are able to separate wheat from the chaff, and they're not as desperate as maybe they used to be for affection and attention.
Mhm.
But let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what was your experience coming in? Did you have bad experiences at all with people making uncomfortable advances in
Oh
your
yeah.
DMs online? I mean, because I'm curious to hear about this and if it's better or worse than you would experience anywhere else. If you think it's par course, men are men, or if there's a problem that we need to address and give people a little bit of advice on, hey, how to be less creepy.
Oh, like Jordan Peterson said that Twitter, social media,
He hit
stuff
on
like
you?
that. No, 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 no,
What
no.
a
No.
pervert! No.
He is one of my followers, though. I adore him. But he said that social media is just the hub for people who are um, narcissistic and sociopathic and psychopathic and Machiavellian. It's these people will come to places like Twitter, where they can talk without really having to be accountable for things. So as a woman, I get a lot of I get hit on a lot. My DMs are absolute cancer. It is harem in
Mm,
there. Yeah, you can check your DMs, like the people you talk to, and then you can do message requests. I rarely check my message requests because
yeah.
it's mostly pictures.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't click on the pictures. It's just mostly
You don't
pictures.
do the ratings just once in a while.
No,
4. I look
mm-mm.
at it.
No, no, no. If it's a picture, I don't click on it, because it's 100% of the time I know what's behind that picture.
Meanwhile, your
Um,
poor grandma thinks that you're cutting her off. She's like, I sent her my best casserole and she never got back to me. I don't know what's wrong with this girl.
Yeah. Thank God. Thank God Meme is not on Twitter. Oh.
I mean, is it random people that are, for the most part? Is it people in the, what's the breakdown of people in the Liberty space versus the other space? And also, beyond pictures, is there just an awkward, trying to hit on you
Oh
despite the
yeah.
fact that they know you've got a family?
Yeah, yeah, I get hit on all the time. So I'll get DM messages. People are complimenting me, and that's nice. I try to write thank you back. I try to talk to as many people as I can. That's something that I do that's a little different. I try to converse with as many of my followers as I can. If they respond to me, I'll either like it or I'll say something back to them. That's like such an important part of this for me. So a lot of
Mm,
people see, if I follow them back, or if I like something, or if I comment on something, they see it as an invitation to go into my DMs and hit on me, or
yeah.
do something like that. And I think it's just, people, you don't see a lot of friendly women that are just, like you. And so, but I talk to everybody. So it's not, I'm sorry, you're probably not special if I commented on your stuff.
Right. Well, and this is what I wanted to get into, though. I mean, I think this is kind of the crux of what I wanted to get into on this
Mhm.
show. We're doing a Valentine's episode, and a lot of people, and I'm apologies to all of our listeners out there who are not, people that might be a little bit more social isolated. I'm sure many people out there listening to the show are playboys, and I know a lot of you have families out there, but there's a lot of you that don't. So this is what I want to get into, is a little bit more of like, hey, how can we help people out there to find a little bit more love, to have a little bit more success, and to be, as I said, a little less creepy. I mean, like you said, it's not an invitation. If somebody responds to you one time, to suddenly jump into their DMs and start hitting on them. Number one, your success rate's going to be unbelievably low, and number two, it's presumptively, I guess, not misogynistic, but it gives off an ick factor that I don't think these people understand.
Mm-hmm. I think the best way to move forward and find love is to, for one, I mean, you got to start with finding somebody you're compatible with. And so if politics is a big one right now, you're going to find a lot of psychos, a lot of psycho women out there right now because women tend to lean left. So, it does bring your pool down very small because there aren't a lot of libertarian women. And I can actually get into a poll that I did actually when I first started my account. But there's not a lot of libertarian women. So I understand that the poll's small. You got to shoot your shot where you shoot your shot and hope that you find a woman that's like-minded like you. But I had done a poll earlier when I first started my account, and I used the Myers-Briggs personality test, right? Mm-hmm. So I am an INTJ, and this is rare. This is one of the most rare personalities, and it's the most rare in women. Only 2% of women are this, right? And so I polled Twitter and the libertarians, because by this time I might have had like 1,000 followers. And I polled them and I was like, all right, what's your personality type? Half of them were INTJ. Mm-hmm. Half the libertarians are INTJ, half. And this is a minute percentage of people, but when you're a libertarian, it comes like it's pragmatic thinking, it's logic, it's reason. And so it's like, okay, well, that makes sense, like, so we're a fringe factor here in the political sphere. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, it brings your dating pool down really small when you're a man looking for a woman, because so many women are insane. Women are insane.
Yes, that's true. I mean, even my wife, who's a wonderful woman, she's insane.
Yes.
But, and I'll say this, my wife is, and I didn't find this out until actually we were well into our relationship, because we didn't really talk about politics really early on, to be honest. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that, because that the dating pool is very small if you're just going after people that are ideologically in lockstep. And I think that, while my wife is a libertarian, she doesn't want to talk to me about libertarianism at all. She'll kind of rant about stuff that's going on, taxes and whatever, the State of the Union, and we'll talk a little bit. But for the most part, she does not listen to the podcast. She does not want me to go deep into philosophy. She's not reading any Rothbard. Yeah. She's just a natural libertarian.
Yeah.
However, before I met my wife, dated many women from all over the political spectrum, and we just never got into it that deeply. I would tell them I'm a libertarian, but I wouldn't go deep into it. And by the way, am I coming through okay? Because I was having an issue with my internet earlier.
Oh, no, okay? I can hear you fine. It cut out a couple times, but not enough where it even affected me being able to hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, you're driving me insane. Okay, so, what are your thoughts on that, though? If you're a guy trying to find a gal in our space, should you just shut up a little bit, which is not easy for libertarians to do, right? You want to show off your massive throbbing brain veins, and it's hard for people to hold back.
No, I get that for sure. It is hard as a libertarian to shut up about things, but 80% of the population aren't really that political. So while you want to find someone like-minded, want to find a libertarian, you're going to have some luck in the 80% too. Most of those people don't really pay attention. They don't have any idea who Alex Jones is. They don't know. They don't know who Eliza Blue is. They don't know. They're just kind of there to watch the news and then be with their families and work their job. And so you'd have some luck if you just, looked outside libertarian too, and probably find someone. But yeah, women as a whole are pretty crazy. And especially with the talking points, the MSN talking points, a lot of that's parroted when it comes to whether it's abortion or trans children or anything like that. And so it's like, you don't want to find someone stupid, but everybody who repeats those talking points are stupid. So then you're dealing with that on top of it, So yeah, it's hard to find for the dating pool. Like I feel for men that are libertarians for sure.
Well, let me ask you this one. And this is, here we go. I'm already imagining the title of the episode, How to Stalk Your Libertarian Prey with the Red Headed Libertarian. If you were, let's say you're a good actor. You're just a guy looking for love. You're not a pervert creep. You're not going to drop any dick pics in the DMs. How would you go about? Let's say you're fairly isolated. Maybe you'll see some people at a convention, but let's say you're a little bit of a shy person, and the online world is your domain. How would you go about reaching out to somebody? Like, let's say you were back in your younger years. How would you go about reaching out to somebody like yourself?
How would I go about reaching out to myself?
If you're, let's say you're a man, how would
Okay.
you break through? If you're a good dude and you're just trying to use, let's say you meet you in the perfect narcissistic fantasy, where we meet we meet our mirror version of ourselves, and it's an opposite sex. How would you, or same sex? Let's not, how would you go about wooing you? What recommendations would you make to people out there?
Now,
What do you
is
think would
this
work?
before or after the internet? Because I'm a
This is
Zennial, so
This is okay. Yeah, I know. I was also. I didn't have an internet for very many years.
yeah,
This is with internet. Let's say it's
with
current day,
internet.
but you're a younger version of yourself in the current day.
I would reach out and maybe ask them something like-minded, or ask them something like, do you want to do my podcast? That's a way to do it. That's a way to kind of be like, I'm interested in talking to you and hearing your opinions and that sort of thing. That would be kind of the equivalent of, going out on a date almost, I guess. If you
Yeah,
think about it that way, that's the way to do it. Um, so that'd be a smooth way to do it. Um,
I
it,
think
you
that's
know,
the entirety of Reed Coverdale's podcast. I'm pretty sure he built
yeah.
the entire thing around it.
Yeah, so something like that. Like, I want to get to know your ideas, your thoughts. Women want to feel heard, um, and not just seen, because like I the biggest compliment someone can give me is on my intelligence, not on the way I look. So
Right?
that's
Yeah.
just,
Like starting off with like, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful,"
yeah,
is
and it's
not.
like, okay, that's switch it right off. So
Mhm.
I want to hear, like, I really like this idea. I heard you talk about this concept. I really enjoyed your space on the Boston Tea Party, like anything like that. And these are the points that I liked. I thought that this was really good. So complimenting my brain is that's the way in. And I guess, if I represent libertarian women, then that's the way in for them too. Women want to hear about their intelligence. They don't really want to hear about their looks, but tends to be the first thing because it's a compliment. It's the way to get in there. It's something superficial that you can be like, you have beautiful eyes. And it's like, all right, thank you. And then it's just like, where do you go from there? You're
Right.
kind of like already behind at that point.
And dot 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 and hair. Thumbs
Yeah,
up.
it's like, okay. It's flattering. It's always flattering to get a compliment. And anyone who turns down a compliment or feels offended by a compliment, I think that they're probably communists. But compliments are really nice. I do enjoy them. But it's the way to go about it is to go after intelligence, for sure. Intelligence, the brain. That's a sex organ too.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Well, let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Let's say you go, and again, this is going a little deeper on. Let's talk about relationships, right? You've obviously you have 3 kids.
Mhm.
I have 2 myself. What advice do you give to people once they get into that relationship to stay together, to be happy? I mean, what do you find? What do you find keeps people together? And also, oh, actually, before I get into that, sorry, I wanted to ask you one other thing. I find that when I talk to a lot of libertarians, they have absolute confidence in their intellectual abilities, in their knowledge of libertarianism, and as I said, which is a good thing, you can show that off,
Mhm.
but a distinct lack of confidence in a lot of other realms. A lot of lack of confidence, whether it's in their physical appearance, whether it's in their ability to simply be a human that interacts, and I think that is a major issue. And now, again, I don't know what people are saying in your DMs, but do you agree with that just from what you've seen?
The lack of confidence, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people. When I'm right, and I don't even argue with people about it. I'm like, no, I'm right. Like, there's no argument here. When I'm not sure, then I go in and I let people kind of explain things to me. But yeah, I don't. I'm very, very confident in when I'm right. I know I'm right.
Hmm.
But when it, but what I see of other people, and I think a lot of that can go back to the fact that so many libertarians are autistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
I
bunch of
mean, let's not
autists here.
dance around it. It's
Yeah,
true.
I'm just gonna put it out there. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
There
autists.
was a whole show, a whole dating show about autism, but I think it was in New Zealand. We need to get it over here. The Libertarian Party should sponsor it. Angela, are you listening to this podcast? Make it happen.
Let's do this. Yeah, there's a lot of autism. So those people will be very smart and very logical and very pragmatic when it comes to their brains, but they might lack those social cues, or they might not, see themselves for what other people might see them as, if they're
Hmm.
handsome or um, good at something else, because they focus their attention, and they're one, they're Murray Rothbard. Like, I can quote every book, like,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of a, I mean, confidence is very, very sexy. So you want to be confident when you're entering the libertarian sphere. Like, you want to be confident, know what you're doing, and very firm in your beliefs. That's really, really good. That's really attractive. And a lot of that can come from your appearance too. You can be proud of your appearance. There's a lot of men who, for instance, lift. That's great. They take care of themselves. That's also an attractive feature. It's another way to like.
I think that's something that is missing a little bit in the space, is people taking care to be groomed a little bit more. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, or what I've seen at conventions, the libertarian attire is the neckbeard, t-shirt, and a hat, and
the way that we're getting into femininity, I think we have to also get into masculinity.
Yeah.
Because toxic femininity and toxic masculinity are the absence of both. And in order to fight those things, you need to fight them with femininity and with masculinity. And since those are two big pillars and two big roadblocks in freedom right now, that's important for the libertarians to be feminine and be masculine and be that as big as we can be. And yeah, I think we're getting there with femininity, but I think we need to get there even more with masculinity.
Yeah.
Take care of yourselves, like exercise and work out and lift and, get there and be masculine, strong, good father, all the signals.
All the traits. Well, it's all the traits that you want in a good breeding partner. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
I mean, this is at the end of the day what it's all about. And I mean, without a doubt, I think that you're right in that it could really help people. Just again, people put so much attention on, I got to learn all these things and libertarian. Okay, fine. But yeah, take a little bit of time. Your confidence, so much confidence just comes from knowing that you put time and effort into your appearance and some thought into what you're wearing and thought into how you're looking, and the confidence of being confident in yourself beyond what you're there to talk about, beyond again, libertarian thought. Being confident that you have something else to bring to the table. And I think a lot of the awkwardness comes from that, is that these people, and again, I get this all the time at conventions when people talk to me. If you go outside of that comfort zone, it becomes very awkward, if it hasn't already been awkward, very quickly. And if you're a woman and you're not, specifically geared up, or you just are into that, it comes across very blatantly as this is somebody who is one-dimensional, and that's simply not attractive.
Yeah. If I ever share a picture, it gets, a lot of attention, but then I get people in the comments who are like you're stupid, because for one, they can't, because there's been such a distance between intelligence and beauty that they can't see that a woman can be intelligent and beautiful. It's got to be one or the other. Men like their intelligent women to be ugly and their beautiful women to be stupid. And that's something we have to get away from, so that's something I'll be smart. I'll be upfront. I'll drag people. I'll do whatever I need to be. And I'm going to look exactly like myself, and I take care of my appearance.
Well, how much of that do you think also, though, is these, certain people, and I'll be, frank with me, I've always been confident. I had to become confident. I told you this, I went bald at like 16. I told you this on my last show. So I had to be confident. There's no other option, right? But a lot of that is, going into a room and saying, you know what, I believe I can get anybody in this room, right? And I think a lot of what you're experiencing of people saying you're stupid when they see you is also that they have already accepted the fact that you are beyond the possibility of them ever getting. So their only option now is to be cruel, is to build that wall where, well, I'm never going to get her. So let's make sure she's never going to give me a time of day because I've already ostracized her and insulted her.
Yes. And I get that from men, but I also get that from women. Women can be really cruel to other women. And it's not something, and I'd read about it because it's something I've dealt with my whole life, but I've never understood why women attack other women. I just don't speak that language. And so I don't like to do that. I don't like to talk badly about other women, about their appearances. It feels really
not even Madonna.
Low tier to me.
Can we talk about Madonna?
Yeah, Madonna. I mean, she's a public figure. I make exceptions for public figures and politicians. But yeah, what is going on with that? I don't know what.
It's heartbreaking. It's like Meg
She was
Ryan
beautiful. Exactly.
Gorgeous.
She was beautiful in like 2018, and she was aging well. And then she just went like body dysmorphia and on the plastic surgery. It breaks my heart because she was very beautiful, like aging very gracefully. And then she did the cheekbone thing, and you know what? You can't fake those. Okay. You either have them or you don't. And when you don't have them, it looks it never looks right.
That's what's amazing, right? They keep going back to the well. How many horrible people's faces do you have to see shot full of fillers that look like mutant cat people before you
Mhm.
go, maybe I shouldn't do that? Like, what is the? I need to hear the pitch from these plastic surgeons
It's just
because it's
body
got to be amazing.
dysmorphia. They're getting rich off a woman's failure to see her own beauty,
Yeah,
her own natural beauty, and they're like, "Yeah, I could fix that for you." And it's like, "No, you make it worse." And then the women have it, and they keep going back because they know it doesn't look good, but they can't say that, so they keep going back. They're like, "Okay, well, let's correct this. Let's thin this out. Let's take a little less out." Or they think it does look good. Like you see some of the women with the lip injections, and it's
yeah,
very obvious lip injections, and
yeah.
they
The
think
duck
it
lips.
looks they think it looks good. They're convinced that it does because they see thin lips as being bad, but big, full, thick lips as being good, and so they'll go thicker and thicker and thicker.
Yeah,
It's in their brain. It's the dopamine that they get initially, and then the dopamine wears off, and then they're like, all right, well, I need bigger lips now because I need more dopamine. So it's a
yeah.
chemical reaction too on top of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're, it's funny. I was looking at somebody, and I can't remember who tweeted it out, but talking about the dopamine of people being outraged. This is the dopamine of people being injected with freaky substances. And I don't get it either with the big lips. I think thin lips are very attractive. I think
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I'm a weirdo. But let's bring it full circle, right? We've talked about, and I want to hear if there's anything you want to bring up on your own too. I've been kind of prepping you with questions here, but if there's
Oh, I
anything you
love
want to
that.
add,
No,
yeah, I know, I make
that's the way
it
I like
easy
to do
on you.
things. Yeah, that's great. That's the way I
But
like to do things.
yeah, just roll in. But if there's anything you do want to add, just experientially or just a piece of advice you want to lay on people as well. So getting into it, there are plenty of libertarians who do have long relationships. There are plenty that do not, and this doesn't have to be libertarian focused. But I'm curious to hear what you think, and I'll give mine as well because my wife and I we're beyond 10 years in a relationship. We've been married for 6 years, so we're doing okay. We should be fine. But I'm curious to hear your take on what makes a good relationship? What's the thing or a couple things you think really matter more than anything?
Communication is number one. Have to be a good communicator, and there's no way around that. If you find somebody like-minded, that's even better. Like somebody who can almost read your thoughts. Um, that's even better. That's the laziest way to communicate. Like you have someone like your soulmate, for lack of a better word, or your twin flame, some sort of person who's just like you, and that's a good way to do it. But communication for sure. You have to have the same goals too. Like when you have to, it's not only about chemistry, it's about compatibility.
Hmm.
So you could have all the chemistry in the world, but if your goals don't align, then that's sad, that doesn't matter. But so you have to be compatible at the same time. Like you have to agree on how you're going to raise your children. You have to agree on if you're going to go to church, if you're going to homeschool them or send them to public school or private school, where you're going to vacation, what kind of house you want. You have to be compatible. You have to have those same ideals. And a lot of the world is in chaos because, people are facing more on chemistry than they are on compatibility.
Yeah, the chemistry thing. I mean, I think people underestimate just how quickly chemistry, especially sexual chemistry, goes away.
Hmm.
And not to say that it goes away forever. I mean, it's still there. You still find each other attractive, especially if you do work on upkeeping your appearance, which is,
Yeah.
I think, very important. People let themselves go, and that can work out for some people, but for those it doesn't. But finding somebody that is, without a doubt, somebody you find happiness with at all times outside of a sexuality, in a sexually devoid environment, you enjoy spending time with that person.
Hmm. Yes.
But also, I think for me, the one thing I always tell people, like new couples or people that are getting married, is, and this especially comes important when you have kids, as I'm sure you'll back me up here, is taking time to try to do things that the other person would appreciate without being asked. And I'm not talking about giving gifts. I'm not talking necessarily about giving compliments. What I'm talking about is in everyday matters. If you see something on the floor, pick it up. If you see dishes in the sink, do them. If you see the bed needs to be made, just things that your partner's going to appreciate that they don't have to worry about. So it feels like you're a team, you know. And I know some people have very distinct duties, you know, and my wife and I have that too. I'll clean certain things she's not going to clean, you know. I'll take out the trash. But for the most part, we try to be we both be very hands-on in everything. And having that mutual respect and showing I care about you enough to make sure you don't have to do this shit goes such a long way in keeping your relationship happy, because you don't argue about those stupid little things.
Yeah, and you also got to understand their love language. Have you heard about the love languages?
Yes. My wife drives me insane with her love language because she says I don't compliment her enough, but I compliment her all the time, and she doesn't remember a damn one of them. Not a one. Not a one.
I feel your wife. I feel her. So yeah, the love languages, they're acts of service, like what you were talking about, gift giving. I'm going to see if I can remember them. Quality time, physical touch. What's the last one? Oh gosh, I'm going to forget the last one.
I can't remember the last one either.
Drive me crazy.
Physical touch is very important though too. And you know, my wife, just the other day we went out. Now I'm getting dirty. Here's the lust part. Well, we went out. You know, parents, you don't get a lot of time necessarily. And my kids, I'm not sure how old your kids are. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old. So they're very young. They take a lot of attention.
14, 12, and 7.
Okay, so you guys, at least you can be like, go off and do your thing, kids. Mommy and daddy need to get it on. Well, my wife and I went out for, you know, just cocktails, a couple drinks before whatever. And as I came out to the car, you know, I walked up to her and just kind of made out with her real quick, you know. And just that little make out, you know, because now we're to the point you're like scheduling sex because you're so tired. That little make out really meant
that's spontaneous.
The world to her. Exactly. The spontaneity is so important.
Yeah. And another love language that somebody added was being seen. Just being seen. Like, and that's like, oh, I remember that you said this. I remember that you enjoy this. Things like, and I'm like, that's such an important one. Like, it was left off the love languages, and I still can't remember the 5th one. But yeah, it was left off completely. So yeah, I think that's an important one too. And she probably felt seen, you know, and felt like heard and touched, and it was just everything all at once. And that's what women want.
Yes,
we're really not. We can be insane, but we're not that complicated. We really aren't. Like, we just want to be touched and held and loved and, you know, heard and seen, and, you know.
Well, now you know what's coming in your DMs next. As soon as this episode airs next week, well, according to you people, it aired on Valentine's Day or the day after. But yeah, now you know everybody's going to say, I see you. I feel you.
I see you, Josie. I feel you.
There's all the creepiness. We invited it a whole new level. Well, Josie, this has been awesome. So like I said, do you have anything you want to add at the end of this? Otherwise, I'll just say, you know, let everybody know where they can find you. Obviously, Timcast, Twitter, but tell everybody where they can find you, where they can follow you. And thank you. This has been a lot of fun. This is everything I had hoped it would be.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. And so, you know, just love your spouses, you know, like shoot your shot, like keep doing what you're doing, and take care of yourselves. And that's very important too. I do outside media for timcast.com. That's just podcasts, news, radio, stuff like that. And you can find me on Twitter at TRHL official, and you can find me on Instagram, which is non-political. My Instagram, it's mostly pictures of my cat, but that's Queen Josie, KWEEN JOSIE. And then I'm on YouTube at TRHL official as well, or the Red Headed Libertarian. I can't remember which, but yeah, you can find me on YouTube too. And so yeah, that's me.
There you go. And I will link to all those in the show notes for the episode as well. So from me, Brian McWilliams, from Josie, the Redhead Libertarian, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Hope this was helpful. Hope you find love and happiness, or at least some confidence. And we will talk to you soon. So from me, signing off for the Lions of Liberty Network, Mean a Dream, reminding you to keep those electric eyes on me, babe, and keep that ray gun to my head.